Morning, everybody, and welcome to what is essentially a micro teach from the Creating Warriors course, The Winning Mindset, which, as you know, I've been running now for some 2.5 years. The warrior teachers are doing great work out there, and something came up that I thought it might be interesting for us to have a look at because it sort of ties in with something that's happened in the press, and this is the kind of thing that the warrior teachers feed on, basically. So I thought we'd go through something very straightforward to try to bring about an understanding of where we are. Next year is going to be a very important year for those of us that are in the movement to protect free speech and also to bring about a return to sanity. And part of that is going to be the eradication of EDI/DIE. However, what many people don't understand or don't know is that EDI was actually meant to be a good idea, and that for some of the early practitioners, it reflected what would be the views of the majority of people in the UK. So, welcome to this micro teach. First off, let's start with what we mean by EDI versus DIE. I'm going to take you through this in a number of parts, I think probably 3 or 4. And if you wish to see the larger image, it's available on my Substack. So if you can subscribe to my Substack, that'd be a lovely Christmas present, by the way. Then please do. If not, you can simply watch the video and I'll take you through it a bit at a time so that you can get your head around what's going on. So let's get started. What you can see here is 2 distinct columns, or I should say are 2 distinct columns. You can see on one side we've got equality, diversity and inclusion, and on the other side diversity, inclusion and equity, EDI and DIE. Now, what's happened in the interim since I wrote this some years ago is that the pair of them are now utterly useless. It's a very sad situation, but they are. And that the brand, if you like, of EDI and DIE is so unbelievably tainted and so unbelievably rotten to the core that I don't think it's savable. But it's worthwhile letting you have a look at this so that you can decide for yourself what's happened and where we've gone wrong, and whether or not the original idea of what EDI was supposed to be was a good one, as opposed to what DIE has become at the hands of essentially lunatics. So first off, let's give you some context. This, what I'm about to show you now, as you can see the image there on the right, which I'll break down further in a minute, is from a teaching perspective. It is my belief that in the world we now live in, the technologically soaked, knowledge-filled world, which is somewhat scary at times for some of us, but an absolute gift for the young, it is absolutely vital that we all become teachers. And by that, I mean teachers of ourselves, primarily. Because we are not going to survive in this technological adolescence if we don't learn to do that on a regularized manner. And warrior teachers will know that I espouse very much the concept that learning should be as regularized as going to the gym. As I always say, if you don't mind your mind, who will? So this is the definition of equality, diversity and inclusion, and diversity, inclusivity and equity. But from an educational standpoint, that's the first thing you need to understand. I'm talking about this from an educational standpoint. So what EDI was originally meant to mean was equality of opportunity, diversity of thought, and inclusive in action. In other words, we've got to design opportunities for people to come forward and say they're capable and competent and move on. And then we've got diversity of thought, which is to get different ideas from different people, and then inclusive in action, which means if you want to take part in making the world a better place, turn up. That's what equality, diversity and inclusion means to me from the beginning. As I said, it's tainted now. But diversity, inclusivity and equity is a different thing altogether. Diversity, inclusivity and equity, which is unfortunately now become EDI, is diversity of identity. So it matters what colour you are, who you sleep with, whether you think you're a man or a woman. Inclusivity in the in-group. In other words, you won't be included unless you think the same as they do. And equity, which is equality of outcome. Equity is murderous. It's murderous, right? So a good example of equity would be the teacher who says to the children, "Good morning, children. Good morning and welcome. Today we'll be having a test on the Arabian Peninsula. And the kids all go, bloody hell, not another test. He's always rattling on about it. Well, we don't want to do another test because we know who's going to get it right. You know, we know who's going to get a high score. We know who's going to get a low score. It's a waste of time. What do you suggest? Well, why don't you just add it all up and average us out? We'll try it, says the teacher, knowing full well what the outcome will be. So they all take the test. The teacher adds up all the scores, averages them, and they all get a B minus. Everybody goes off. Some of them happy because they would have normally got an F, others unhappy because they were the ones that get an A. The following week, they did the same thing again. Unfortunately, this time they got a C minus. The week after, it was E minus. And the week after that, everybody failed. That's equity. Equity is the poverty of low ambitions. Equity is ensuring that in order to make everybody reach the same level, that you bring those at the top down. It's the only way it can go. That's the difference between the two. So when it came to the philosophy of equality, diversity, inclusion, and the philosophy of diversity, inclusivity, and equity, equality, diversity, and inclusion was essentially through sharing and recognizing opportunities we can collaborate with others and act for the betterment of society, respects the individual as a personal, ongoing development project to nurture and support, a friendly visitor for shared narratives that describe a wider humanity. Remember here, I'm talking from an educational perspective. Preferences the individual's competence and autonomy is the key to progress in an environment of learning and growth, welcomes error correction and new thought. Now, this is absolutely what the Warrior Teacher Program is about. Might, M-I-T-E, might, meritocracy, intelligence, talent, and excellence. That's what the Warrior Teacher Program is about. On the other hand, DIE, which is what it's all become now, is enforced equality of outcome. Identity is based in a structure of power and oppression, where you are placed higher in relation to how much oppression or power you have in an intersectional matrix of never-ending dispute. A visiting tyrant with one narrative and a disdain for humanity chains the individual as an adherent to the central premise and punishes nonconformity, preferences immutable characteristics over ability, and group membership over individuality. Obedience over spontaneity stifles thinking. In other words, and we know this feeling so well, so many of us that are in this fight, you all think like we say you think, or you won't think at all. Put your pronouns in your email. Everybody's racist. Okay? There's a fly. Go away. Now, see? That's the start of it. That's the start of it. So, have a mull, right? Here comes part 2. We're now going to take a look at the philosophical and primary orientation to learning in EDI or DIE. Now, by that I mean, as a teacher, you have a base philosophy. What is my philosophy of teaching? And what is it that guides me? And there's only two, really. You can either pick to be either. You can pick either to be a humanist or a behaviorist, right? The humanist, you go out with the kids, you take the kids to the zoo, right? And you go, you say, right, listen, me and your dad are going to be sat over in the deck chairs by the ice cream van. You lot go and see what you can find and come back and tell us. That's humanist. They come running back there. And the monkey picked his nose and played with his willy, or whatever it may be, right? It's always good to revisit this stuff. That's the humanist idea. The behaviorist idea is Pavlov's dogs. Ring the bell, feed the dog. Ring the bell, feed the dog. Ring the bell, feed the dog. Ring the bell, the dog salivates. That's the only two orientations there are. There isn't any more. That's either what fundamentally, philosophically drives you. Not how you teach, but why you teach. So in other words, what is your primary motivation? Do you think that humans are capable of being humanist, i.e. they'll often do their own thing, come back and tell you, and if you provide the right environment, they'll do it? Or are you a behaviorist, which is where you structure everything? So let's take a look at the difference between those two things. Well, first off, under humanist, there are a number of base assumptions that we make. And please do bear in mind here, I'm not talking about teaching children. I'm talking about teaching adults. Now, from a teaching perspective, there is an educational adult. That means that anybody 13 and above. That doesn't mean they're adults in any other way. It means that they are capable of the same logical reasoning and the same scientific processing as you and I are. Except they can't do it quite so well because they're just learning, right? But that's the educational adult in so much as they have the capacity to learn as we do. So we're only worried about, I don't know, nippers, get them up the chimney, right? Other than that, this is the people who are interested, the ones that can logically reason, okay? The others, we safeguard because of the dangers of DEI. We safeguard those absolutely totally, and we safeguard the others, but it's more likely to come with knowledge. So there'll be an explanation rather than a simple no. So from a humanist, the base assumption is that it's andragogical. The individual is perceived as adult, not an adult, perceived as adult. The teacher is a guide. There are multiple perspectives. Learners are future teachers. Learners as explorer on own terms, off to see the monkeys. Aims for individual agency. How can we strengthen that individual agency and get them to become their own person? A personal act fulfilling potential is the primary required outcome. It enables development of the whole person. It's external stimuli available for exploration. They learn from error. In other words, well, you want to know about it, go and look. You want to know about it, go and try it. You want to be a trapeze artist, go and have a go, you know? So about exploration, further learning, there's always further learning, because we should never stop. Self-directed discovery followed by discussion and exploration. So they'll do their own thing, come back and go, do you know what I found was this? And the other person will go, no, I didn't see that. I saw this. And you have discussion, right? Personal understanding, sharing and collaboration, vital. It's absolutely vital that what they understand and what they discover is shared and that they're able to collaborate with other people in any particular project or outcome they wish to achieve. History is another country to explore. This is very exciting from the point of view of young people now, because you've got, your phony thingy, which can help you do it. So you can get out there and you can explore. There'll be collaborative achievement, which is they'll do things together and they'll celebrate those things together, as well as personal gain, i.e. he did that bit, she did this bit, okay? They will enhance collaborative keys. So what this does is it allows people to come together to collaborate on things, and having this philosophy about the human ability to learn enables that to be more cohesive. But fear stunts learning, so they have to be careful. There's a difference between having a little bit of fear, a little bit of stress, and something so fearful, which is what DEI does. It makes you fearful to speak, that we know that it stunts learning to have that fear. So we work against that fear. That's not to say that fear can't help you learn. It can. It's a vista, i.e. a landscape for autonomous learning, which is where you learn yourself, is revealed. You can see it. Oh my God, I'll have a look at that. I've got friends who do this, especially the younger ones. What would you do about? No, I didn't know that. Let me have a look. And then they're off. They're gone. Next thing you know, looking up something ridiculous. I'm glad we're revisiting this because I think it's worth it. Okay? Next, let's go to the other side, which is DIE, which has a behaviorist primary orientation. Their philosophy is that humans must be nudged into certain behaviors. It's pedagogical, so the individual is perceived as a child. They're not just perceived as a child, they're perceived as ill. We must make the human better. They're perceived as ill, especially by DIE. They think you're poorly because you don't think like they do. That's how dangerous these swine are. The instructor is a parent because we teach them as if they're children, pedagogical. There's only one perspective, which is theirs. Participants are future activists. This is designed to create future activists. The learner is a vessel for required behavior. They aim for collective ideological thought. A change in behavior is the primary required outcome. They don't care how they achieve it either. It manipulates the environment to achieve its own ends. Flags here, flags there, posters here, posters there, the email signature with the pronoun in it. There is nudging and top-down edicts, and there is punishment for error. This is, if you want to see this on a nationwide scale, just look at the ESG goals. And look out for teachers telling your kids that there's social emotional learning and belonging. That's all this, okay? There will be repetition of mantra and enforcement. Trans women are women. White fragility. All the stuff that comes with it. Repeat ad nauseum. There will be enforced rules and roles, which is to recall and perform. In other words, what have we told you to do? You will go and do it. Show that you are doing it or we'll come for you. Victim oppressor narratives, division, disruption, and conflict. That's all they're all about. Everything must be torn to pieces. Everything must be conflict. That's what they've done, and that's what they're doing to your children, and that's what they're doing to you in your workplaces. It's an age-old battle, folks, I tell you. History is a battleground for rewriting and reframing so that they can find the oppression and power from the past and blame individuals for that. Let's hope we don't go back as far as the Visigoths. There is grievance collectivism, i.e. they'll get a group of people together who will go seeking grievance. Hope not hate anyone. There's a group that does that. There's tribal collectivism. This is my tribe. I'm part of the non-binaries. Fear works. Fear works. You know it works because it makes you silent. It makes people in the workplaces silent. It makes people in schools silent, in universities silent. That's thank God for Elon Musk and X, eh? Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to speak at all. And boxes are ticked. That's the most important thing. Have you covered critical race theory? I have. Have you covered queer theory? Yes, I have. Have you covered postmodernism? Yes, I have. So do they now think, that racism is endemic? Yeah. And do they believe men can be women? Yeah. Good. And have we got the correct number of people on the... You bet it's box ticking. It's absolutely box ticking. Okay. So let's do the next one. So how do they view the individual? This is really interesting because it's such a moribund view of humanity. If you look on the left, this remains what should have been EDI, but is now completely destroyed. The individual develops own reason to learn. The individual will self-direct and is active. Central to progress. The individual is central to any progress. Reflective of learning beyond initial input. So they go for like the warrior teacher, come and see me, and I'll go blah 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 blah, and off they go and do their own learning, their own reflecting on what the initial input was. So they go beyond it. There's reflection again, not obeyance. In other words, we don't obey, people reflect. Everything is for your consideration. They engage in healthy disagreement and debate, which we do. Oh, do we? Come and join us so you can find out. It is led from the known to the unknown. So generally we take people from what they know already and we move them towards the unknown so that they can increase their sphere of understanding, which is very important. They develop ethical patterns through social interaction. In other words, they test each other's boundaries. They're finding out what do we think this is, which bit is okay, which bit is not. So those discussions occur. And the individual is vital to a collaborative goal. So they look after the individual, they look after each other, but they ensure that the individual is able to take part. If that individual, if we find out the individual is not or can't do it or is just not interested, then that individual goes and does something else. It doesn't matter. What about the DIE side of it? How does DIE look at this? Well, here's another interesting one for you. The individual is the conduit of instruction and edicts. They're like zombies, aren't they? Trans women, power, oppression, intersectionality. They're like robots, right? The individual is a conduit of instruction and edicts. Participation rarely occurs. It's mostly passive acceptance. You will accept. Right, you've got training next week, Brian. Have I? What's that about then? Is it colostomies? Eh? No? Eh? Livers? No. DIE. What's that about then? Doesn't really matter. Just go and do what they say. That's what it is, okay? Central to prescribed activism. In other words, the base assumption in DIE is that you will become an activist for their activist program, which is all about power and oppression narratives and men are women and men are men and women are women. Everybody's racist and the world's going to blow up. That kind of stuff, right? So you end up being an activist. That's what they're after. So they'll teach a classroom of 12 and out of that they'll get one. That's all they care about because one can disrupt an entire company. Business, coming up to next year, the businesses are going to have to get these people out. They're going to have to find a way to do it. I think the way to do it is to say, you're fired, take me to a tribunal. And then when they win, which they probably will, just pay them off or pay them off beforehand. You're going to have to take the hit because businesses have got these people in them and they're going to have to get rid of them. How the hell are they going to do that? Any ideas, anyone? Let me know in the dubris, as usual. Okay, what we've got next? Individuals will... where are we? View the individual. Central... accepts it. Right, so they accept initial impact and withdrawal. What that means is that they move in, teach, and go, that'll do, that's enough, that'll start them off, and then they back off, okay? The individual accepts the initial impact and withdraws, so they just take it and go. There's no questioning. The individual will obey, not reflect. Individual dissent is heretical. Those two are together, really. The individual tried to tell the HR it was shit, tried to tell HR you don't like the idea that they think men are women. You wait and see what happens to you. Right? The individual dissent is heretical, so they will see you as a heretic. You'll be treated as such. You'll be ostracized within the workplace, or even worse, fired, like so many have been. The information given to you on these sorts of courses and by these people is that it's final. It's the last word. And you're pressurized to accept ideological tenets. In other words, you must accept their belief systems, which are predicated on some pretty nasty philosophies. Right, pretty nasty philosophies. Everything needs tearing apart. Nothing's real. It's all constructed. It's the usual cobblers you get out of these people, but that's what they'll do. And the individual is expendable for the collective good, i.e., when the time comes, they will sacrifice you. I know. Don't look at me all forlorn and ashen. This is what it is. This is what it is. So let's take a look at the last bit, right? Okay, so here comes the last bit. So what's the last part? Well, the last part we're interested in is what is the role of the teacher? Well, take a look on the left. As usual, this is what should have been equality, diversity, and inclusion. They arrange the environment to promote autonomous learning. In other words, the teacher will produce, if you will, an arena in which the individual can explore. The end is unknown. Learning continues. I mean, there is no end to it. They encourage free exploration, encourage skepticism. Learners are autonomous thinkers. In other words, they get on with it, right? They do it for themselves. They think for themselves. They question, critically think. Learners then demonstrate transparency. So they share what they've learned. They don't go, I've got the knowledge. They share what they've learned. And then the teacher will encourage encourages a tool for growth and welcome. It's so any disagreement is seen as a chance to learn. Any kind of argument that takes place, any critical thinking is all seen as a chance to learn. Participation is encouraged, not enforced. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. Want to change the world? Turn up. Warrior teachers with their homework. I don't do the homework, but he never minds. Again. And non-participation is an individual choice. No force, right? Let's look at what DEI is. They manipulate the environment and individuals to achieve the aim, i.e. the aim being a change in behaviour. The end justifies the means. Instructions end. When they know this, I'm done. There's no questions. They implement mandates and they silence dissent. Participants are vessels for edicts. They don't give a damn about the individual. They just give a damn about the behaviour. They facilitate censorship of all kinds, everything from trigger warnings to ID to get into certain places, whatever it may be. They'll have some way of censoring things across the board. The failure is non-compliance and punishable. Why isn't your pronouns in your email signature? Why aren't they right? Why aren't you calling Mark she or Mary? Isn't that Mary is Mark now? Because now he's a woman. You won't accept that you're inherently racist. Why? Well, I'm talking to HR about you. You bet. Participation is enforced. These are mandatory, these trainings, by the way. Are they? Yes. What does that mean? You have to go. And non-participation is heretical and would often lead to dismissal if you're in the workplace, or ostracization if you're in a particular group. This is how these people work, and to pretend otherwise is foolish. This is where we are. Now, it's interesting, isn't it? Because what prompted this was the fact that they've just closed some Latin classes and done it halfway through the term to make a point. So they're going, here's what we're going to do with classics. And they've also said that visits to museums are too middle class. You bet equity's coming. You bet it. And we've got a curriculum review going on right now in which these people are in charge of the curriculum review. Why aren't they just going to Catherine Burble-Singh and going, Michaela School, doing so well? We'll copy that in every facet. Right? Every ed teacher, couple of days in the peaks, nice hotel. This is Catherine. Catherine, here's £500,000. Change the country. Why aren't they doing it? They aren't doing it because they're not interested in your child. They're not interested in teaching your child. They're interested in forcing their ideology down the throats of everyone because they honestly believe from their ivory tower that you and I are poorly and we need fixing. Now, I could be wrong about this. I'm more than happy to be told that I am, but I don't think I am. And I'm sure that you will, in the Dubries, tell me. If you've enjoyed this and you want me to keep going, buy me a coffee, subscribe to my Substack, but most of all, come and join us on the Warrior Teacher Program. Because this is only going to change one person at a time, and we've got an awful lot of work ahead of us. All right? I hope you've enjoyed this mini micro teach. Thank you very much indeed. A mini micro teach. God, sometimes I'm a twit. I hope you've enjoyed this micro teach, and I look forward to speaking with you again about such things. You have a great day. Bye-bye.